It's hard to tell right now, but I am in, well, it was sunny San Diego earlier today. You can see a little helicopter flying. I'm using my headphones and the mic here to see if I can't minimize the amount of background noises that would disrupt or interfere with the flow of what we're talking about. Especially with me, with my ADD, it probably wouldn't be too much for me to lose my focus. Today, I want to talk a little bit about, for the knowledge nugget, Emil's knowledge nugget, I want to talk about those moments where the communication seems to freeze. When people are talking back and forth, we think of the communication strategies that we can use to try to guide that communication. One of the common questions I'll get from parents who've got a kid, a teenager, who doesn't want to talk is, how do you interact with somebody who's not interested in opening up? They're not talking. They're literally sabotaging the communication process by shutting down. The term is called stonewalling. They're just building up a stone wall and they're just disengaging from the conversation. Now, that's a manipulative tactic to sabotage the process of having a conversation, which might end up holding them accountable to whatever the topic of the conversation is. And so one of the strategies is to shut down and avoid it. Now, sometimes that shut down strategy, that stonewalling, is actually a response to feeling flooded. They feel emotionally overwhelmed, and since they don't know how to process those thoughts and feelings, they just kind of shut down. Like if you ever have a Mac computer where you have that spinning beach ball of doom, or if you have a different type of desktop kind of computer and like an HP or something, and you get that hourglass that keeps spinning. Well, when someone feels overwhelmed, then one of the things that they'll do to try to cope is to shut down. They reduce the amount of input they're getting. So that's one of the strategies people will have, is they'll just kind of pull in and withdraw and just ignore what's going on outside of them because they're not able to process that information. So no matter what the reasons are that are contributing to a person who's shutting down or stonewalling, there's things that we can do to make a change. There's things that we can do to open up somebody who isn't opened up already. And so one of the strategies, and you'll be able to see some of these things in the toolbox area, is you're going to be able to see different tools that we constantly are using for different situations. And so what we'll do is we'll use those tools in the situations that we have. Hey, Cindy, welcome to the thing. I'm doing my knowledge nugget, talking about how to deal with people who are shut down, who don't want to communicate anymore. So when you have a kid or anybody in your life that's shutting down, and they're withdrawing, they're kind of hijacking the communication conversation, then instead of us asking a bunch of questions and trying to get them to talk, instead, what we're going to try to do is do what I call do the translate. If we could translate what their body language is saying in that situation. So let's say we're in the middle of a conversation, or we're trying to have a conversation, and next thing you know, Jimmy's shutting down, looking at the carpet, not going to say a word, and you're like going, hey, come on, let's talk. We really need to talk. You know, we're having a therapist here to help us out. If you don't open up, we're not going to get anywhere. You see all those kinds of things that we would normally do. Well, what we're really doing is saying, what you're doing, Jimmy, is extremely effective in hijacking the entire communication, the entire process, which now, if I'm the parent, I'm wasting the money. I'm wasting the time. And so I get frustrated and I'm just, what do I do? I might look at the therapist and go, so what do we do here? In those situations, we can actually lubricate the lips, so to speak, by giving his body language words. So what we do is I call it translating. Jimmy, it sounds like what you're trying to say is, and you just do your best guess. It's not going to be 100% nailing it, because what we're trying to do is create a scenario where he either has to correct it, okay, or he has to accept it. Either way, he's going to have to open up, because he doesn't like the idea that you're guessing what he's saying and assuming that you know. So he'll have to pipe up somehow. So, hey, Jimmy, it sounds to me like what you're telling me is that you're really not interested in communicating right now. The conversation, the topic isn't of something that you really have a lot of interest in, and you don't feel like you're going to be able to say what you need to say and be heard in a way that you feel respected and acknowledged. And so it just doesn't make any sense to even communicate right now. Now, we're translating, not passive aggressively trying to poke him. We're not saying, and you feel like it's totally okay to just waste the time. No. Because there's the embedded criticism. We don't want an embedded criticism. All we're doing is doing our honest level best to translate what that person's saying. And if we can just translate what that person's saying with their body language, then we increase the likelihood of them correcting it, okay, or agreeing with it. They have to do something to acknowledge that. So that's one of the ways that you can get somebody who's not talking, whether it's someone that you work with or even your partner, or it doesn't matter what it is. Oftentimes people don't communicate because they're unsure of what to say, and or they believe that their silence is this amazing strategy to hijack the conversation, which makes it really frustrating to do. So if you're in a situation where your son or the other person is not opening up, they're not sharing their thoughts and feelings, they're not communicating, instead of us being hijacked by what they're saying and doing, we translate what they're saying as if an angel came down and said, hey, I think what that person's trying to say is blank, blank, blank. Then you wait. Notice, remember, what they don't say is saying something. We just don't know what it is. And so we have to just do our best guess. So let's say hey, Jimmy, I can see that you're really frustrated, that you don't feel like this conversation's going anywhere, and it really doesn't feel like you're making any progress in it. So it just seems like right now is not a good time for you to open up or talk. And I'm waiting, right? And he doesn't say anything. He thinks he's going to pull one over on us. Nope, not going to happen, because I'm going to do it again. I'm going to translate for him, which is going to put him in a corner now. Hey, Jimmy, I guess what I'm hearing you say without you saying a thing, what your body language is saying to me is you're really not interested in talking. There's no point in having this conversation. You don't want to invest in this conversation. Don't feel like it's going to go anywhere. You know what? I'm going to respect that. Since you don't really want to talk, I don't want to pressure you. I think it's a good idea to let him have his space and have his time and have him think on the things he needs to think on. Sound good, therapist? All right. So unless you've got something else, I'm good to go. So if there was an effort for him to think that he could somehow sabotage the process and get you to emotionally engage or decompensate, as what we call it, when you start falling apart. Because if you start to fall apart or get upset or get, frustrated, well, then he's feeling power. That power it's reinforcing his perspective that what he's doing is effective. And sometimes teenagers are so desperate to feel a sense of power that they'll do things completely contrary to what will get them what they truly want in the long run. Any questions about that process, Cindy? I'm going to unmute you for a second.
Yeah, no, I just gotta remember to do it. That sounds like my family sessions, exactly what he does.
Don't you feel in that moment like you're kind of getting your hands tied behind your back and you're like going, what am I supposed to do in this situation? Right? So that's a tool to use so that you don't feel powerless. And ultimately, he's not going to get what he wants, because there's a lot of things that we have as a parent that they want. And so if they become more interested in getting the things that they want than we are in getting them what they want, then they have to step up their game, which is actually a really important life lesson, because we have to do the same thing. If we want something in life, we have to step up our game to get it.